be effective in the real world compared to having a policy of addressing sin and minding virtue and the goodness of prayer. I think too, though, one thing that I advocate to my audience is a focus on family rearing personally for themselves, regardless of their race. It does seem to be the project of saving a white race should be with them, every individual working hard towards finding the right mate and producing children that can then carry on between themselves and thinking in terms of multi-generations. I don't know what you seem to be focused on your space
Well, I mean, it's just that love is not very attractive at the moment. I feel like video games have become like the perfect. If love has become another form of recreation, it will lose to video games every time. But that's really kind of the problem. It's like the proposition for intimacy, love, child rearing, it is actually not an attractive proposition for men. Because, you know, if you want the sexual gratification, it's easily accessible through porn, escorts, casual hookups. If you want marriage, it's this deep investment and doesn't have very good record of success these days. And there's like structural incentives that make it that way. You know, no-fault divorce being the big thing. And just generally the culture and attitude that we have about women, which is that they have agency. You know, they've been liberated from men. That's really the problem. So I think that whole thing's got to be fixed if we're going to direct sexuality in towards its proper end, because otherwise, you know, you have to look at the society we've created. It's like, well, why don't people want to go and create stable relationships and have kids? It's like, well, have you touched grass? It's brutal out there, you know, and I'm not even speaking from experience. I'm not, you know, I'm more of a not really sexual person in general, but you look outside and it's like, it's a wasteland out there. So, but the whole thing is like,
maybe you should figure that out. Try it out
sometime. What they've been taught to want, which is the instant gratification, which is women's independence and equality. Like, look, if women are fertile and if they reach an age where they can reproduce and they find themselves in a classroom, then people aren't going to get married at that age. You know, and it's just that simple. So, and what's more, if people are being told like marriage is arbitrary, then people aren't going to stay together. Who wants to be married? It's going to be a very small group of people that want to stick it out on principle. It's like, because, you know, marriage, you both get old, you change physically, you change your personality, you go through difficult periods, and familiarity breeds contempt. You know, human beings actually don't like to know everything about each other. So, you know, the only thing that keeps people in these solid formations, it's got to be a society that is united behind religion. Otherwise, you know, people are going to do whatever they want to do, and that's divorce, sex, promiscuity.
Right. So, the sexual hedonism is a product of the atheism, and it is one of I think the big projects that needs to happen culturally in America is a return to spirituality, because it reflects on our reproduction.
Whoever shall call us Thelemites will do no wrong.
It's one of the priorities. It's something I talk about often with my community, but I guess also, my community is somewhat mixed gender. I think your recruiters are mostly guys. You're a bit of a true cell, actually. You're talking about the floated cell.
I am. I'm the only true cell left, dude. Everyone has gone full on like simp or Wojak respecter. I'm the last true cell left.
No. I don't appreciate the beta simping. I think a recovery is possible for the Floyd, but absolutely it requires a certain rearrangement of their self-identity as women and men.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of conservatives aren't helping because it's basically everyone is a feminist now. And if you start to express anything that is actually opposed to feminism, even the conservative women start to say, "Oh, that gave me the ick. Oh, that's toxic. Oh, blah, blah, blah." It has to be totally shut down, totally rethought. And I don't hate women. Like, I do love women, but they're just off the reservation these days, totally misguided. And the problem is all women do hate men now. And when I say that, not all women hate all men, but that women hate men because women hate the men that most embody maleness. The men that men embody, like Trump. Trump is someone that every real guy loves. Like, this is a guy that he's not pro-social. I mean, he is. He's a businessman, but he's very brash, gets to the point, no nonsense. This is like your boomer dad that every young guy looks up to. Every real young guy looks up to. The guy that can handle anything, stoic, nothing, totally unflappable. And not all women, it's getting better, but like all women hated Trump. All women hated Trump. They all hate Andrew Tate. And I've had this thought before. It's like, I feel like it used to be the case that those kinds of guys, like your crazy uncle, your badass grandpa, these guys who were super male, in the old days, young girls would be like a serving wench for those guys. Like, they'd be like, they love those guys. They're affectionate towards those guys. And now I feel like all women look at guys like that and roll their eyes and go,
This is because you don't go out, Nick. Maybe women would like you if you went out and talked to women.
Women wouldn't say they hate men, but a lot of women these days hate maleness, and they like men that act more like women. And even if they're not flamboyant, even if they're not feminine, like in their affect, they like guys that are, like women these days say, I like a guy that's goofy. I like a guy. They like these like silly people, these like silly, simpy people, and anyone that's actually like a fucking boss, like Trump, they hate. And that's kind of
You're Sigma true self. Maybe that's why Vince had to be a race breeder. He had to go outside of this grade of woman. Maybe that's what you should consider. Maybe go Asian like this here in the Bay. Yeah.
So that's my hot take. But I think we agree on a lot of stuff. I think that you and I get it. Like, you're more liberal. I get it.
Dude, I don't know if that's exactly true.
Well, you know what I mean. You're like a liberal, like not like a leftist shit, but like a
yes, yeah, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
And I sympathize with that, honestly. But,
yeah, I mean that's what I had said.
Yeah. So we agree on a lot of stuff. I mean, your community agrees. There's a lot of groypers in your space or whatever. But the question is always, but that's what's funny is like, you and I can rap on this kind of stuff, not to like, take it to another place, but it's like the problem is there's this interested force behind a lot of politics that they want to present as a free discourse, but squelching certain things. And like, because I could rap with people that I disagree with. Like you said, I don't like the Jews. I actually like Jews. People give me shit because I say that, but I do. I think that Jews are intelligent. I think often they're funny. They're very funny. And I get along with them. And I've said it before, and I get shit for it, but I have a lot of Jewish friends because I think they're funny people. But the question is always, when you start to say things that they don't like, then they want to like lynch you. You start to say stuff that they don't agree with, and then they're like, well, you're not welcome here anymore. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work then. We got to be able to disagree. So I feel like my whole political self-discovery is something like that. I thought we were all cool and free marketplace of ideas and whatever. And then they started to say, no, but you can't go there. But you can't say this, that, the other. And then they roll out these bullshit tactics, smearing, defaming, attacking your character. And anyway, I don't mean to make it about me and that and sound whiny again or whatever, but I'm just saying, because I think, someone like you and I, people are sending me all kinds of shit about you. I'm like, I'm not trying to come after this guy's personal life or whatever, and go into the recesses of his, all these personal attacks. But it's like that has been made impossible in this political scene. And I wish it weren't that way. And that's why, the Groyper, I just wish someone would give the Groypers a chance, because I've been thinking about this a lot. It's like, Piers Morgan banned us, Tucker banned us, Tim Pool banned us, Patrick Bet-David banned us, Sobhouse banned us. It's like, what the fuck? We just want to, rap with the rest of everybody. We got our check marks taken. 15 of our guys got banned on X. I thought this was the right-wing victory. So, if we could be a party to it, it'd be one thing, but that's just where I'm coming from, if you can understand that. Because we can get along and be civil, but we're like the N-words. We're second-class citizens here, so that's why we got to be a little pissed off all the time. That's why I got to be mad all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very similar for us too in the last 4 years. We've battled our way through the crypto space and basically made it a safe space for us to do our own thing, which is anything we want. So I can feel where you're coming from. I don't know any of the history and lore between the fighting, but I don't have a problem with the Groypers. As soon as I saw that my community was also part of your community, at least whatever sectors, and they told me that you guys, the Groypers, are cool, you're cool, then I'm like, all right, I'll give you a chance. I think we maybe came at it strong, but I don't know anything about interpersonal politics. I don't care or think about that kind of stuff. Really, it's just we are trying to force free speech down the throat of culture, and force free information, free markets. I guess maybe the free markets is something you probably disagree with, but that's what it is. In terms of the other points, I have my opinions on the racial makeup or whatever, or the future of the void, but that's just shooting the shit.
Yeah, well, you guys are cool. I mean, your community's cool. I've seen a lot of the ladies, and I fuck with it. By the way, I mean, your project, what it represents, the more I read about it, I liked it. The idea of, because someone was telling me, because I don't know the crypto stuff, but someone was telling me, the NFT people, it's a lot of degenerate gamblers and stuff, and they said, you guys care about art and cultivating something with integrity, with artistic integrity. And that's something that I believe is really important. So, I do support it. I just, when you start to see some of these connections you get, and don't get me wrong, because I understand what you're saying when you say not every connection necessarily proves, it proves that there's this intense collaboration, but you do have to recognize that, look, the CIA has been manipulating politics in this country for 100 years, and so do other intelligence agencies. And that's the one heuristic or the one hermeneutic that I feel like right-wing people need to apply to the right-wing space. And I'm not in favor of like a scare, like a red scare, no pun intended. But I do think that is something where a lot of young people like me, like how I was when I was younger, when I was a teenager, they look at right-wing politics and they say what they're seeing is what they're getting. And we know that in politics, that's never the case. And I know you're not maybe a super political guy, but I am, and I know the political people. And the truth is that looks can be deceiving. And in the right wing, there is a lot of, because there's so much is at stake in politics, there's a lot of interest and money in politics and subterfuge. And I feel like we have to be on our guard. And that's why it matters to know who we're talking to and what they're really about and everything like that. Because at the end of the day, what we really need in the country is Americans. We need, and no offense, Adrian, we need Americans running America. We need Americans that love America running America, and other people that love other countries can run those countries. But we need to run this country. People that actually love the people and love the place. So that's kind of who I am. That's what I'm about. But I respect what you're doing. I like the community.
So one definition, however, that I'd like to narrow down, though, is like, who do you define as an American?
Well, it's a tough question, because if you say American citizen, that means anchor babies, and I think anyone would see the problem with that. That someone who descends from John Adams is more American than someone who's here on a technicality. So I would say there's aspects that go into it. You know, if you speak English, if you have citizenship, if you've been here for a few generations, I think that's the minimum. You got to be here for a few generations. And then I think, you know, as far as race is concerned, it gets complicated because, you know, America was expanded over time and different parts were grafted on at different points. You know, like, would you say that only the people that came on the Mayflower are American? Because Chicago was only incorporated in the 19th century. But there were English settlers here in the 17th century. And Mexicans have been in Texas for a long time. So, you know, I think we all know, though, that the most American Americans are English. The most American Americans have been here for hundreds of years. And, you know, people that have been here for not as much time and further in proximity from that are probably less American. Where you say they're not American, I would say immigrants. They're not American yet. People who don't speak English, you know, things like that. We all recognize also that, you know, you have like Russia. When we think of a Russian, we think of a Slavic person, but there are Muslims that have been living in Russia for hundreds of years, but they're like Russian Muslims or Muslim Russians. Similarly, we think of America, we're supposed to think of Tom Cruise. You know, we're supposed to think of George Washington. We're not necessarily thinking of Sundar Pichai. You know, and yet he's like an Asian American or something. So I guess I believe in the hyphens, but an American is, so it's a little complicated, but yeah, I would say it's something like a combination of a few different attributes: legacy, race, it's in some ways values. You know, we think of American, we think of boldness, courage, risk taking. If someone's like a pussy, like a weed smoking degenerate, that's not very American, you know. So it encapsulates a lot of different things.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. So, but
the big picture.
You go ahead, and then I'll go ahead.
I think the best proof case of true assimilation is that multi-generationally you see them assimilate racially too. So if you look at the arc of the American experiment, it's largely a racial experiment, but it's regional too. So, you know, there's a West Coast American, an East Coast American, a Southwest American, etc.
Well, yeah, like Miami. If you think of someone from Miami, they speak Spanish, you know, like Miami's like a Caribbean country practically. So, but, yeah, I mean, it's just the problem is we're getting to this point where American, we can't even say what it means. And that's a problem. And it's a big problem, you know, on the topic of birth rates, because it's like if we don't have a sense of who we are, if we don't have a sense of grounding, it's literally suicidal. Even if they're not killing themselves, there's despair. They're not, those sexual energies are subdued because we're deeply uncomfortable and dislocated, and, you know, it's not healthy. That's why I say, like, we need people that really love America to run the country, to look at people like that and to actually take care of them. Not just like provide for their physical needs, but to actually take care of their society. And that's why I believe in that kind of like, you know, I work for UPS. They say that UPS only promotes from within. You start unloading the trucks and you rise all the way up to like senior management. And that's kind of what we need in America. We need somebody to be like Trump in a sense like that. You know, ostensibly, I mean, they want Vance to be like that. I suppose, strictly speaking, he would meet that definition. But at the same time, he's like a venture capitalist. We need somebody that actually loves Americans to be running the country. And by running it, I mean subordinating oligarchs to them as well. Because these people don't give a fuck. You know, like Google came in, and like everyone knows Google sucks now. Like Google search results aren't accurate. And the reason why is because they brought in all these Indian engineers. And no offense, and the Indian engineers said, if we make the search results less accurate, they'll spend more time watching ads. Because if you find it right away, you don't go to the second page. But if you keep going through search pages, I can't find it. I'm getting all this other crap. Then there's more time watching the ads. So it's like that's the kind of thing. Like Steve Jobs should run Apple because he loves Apple. He loves the iPhone. It's true integrity. Similarly, someone should run America who actually understands America, not these people that want to do the advertising scam with our fucking economy and our country. Not to ramble, but
I don't even disagree with you.
Okay, so there's a bunch of interesting things there. With what is fundamentally American, it's more so about concept than it is just about race, I think. I think that if you have, say, a particular set of values, and these values are ones that you represent from the self directly, not because somebody tells you to represent them, but because it is something that you yourself have. Let's say, for instance, there's this interesting effect that exists when, say, with blue states, they've kind of fucked up now. So many people are actually moving away from these blue states into red states because those states are still okay. Now the problem is, if you take the blue state mentality and you put it into the red state, then they will vote different. Then they will vote, they will kind of pollute things in a sense because they will vote a certain way, the same way that fucked up the state that they came from. So for instance, I would say if you have like some sort of understanding of values and you actually represent them yourself, you have to vote a certain way, for instance, right? Because you have to understand where you're going. So I think what would make someone say, fundamentally American would be someone who understands the values, enforces those values at every level, understands the history, is in line with that history, and is proud of it, I think, even to a certain extent. Right? So there's a certain thing that makes people American. And I would say even the ironic thing is many of the greatest things that came to America actually came from other people that weren't even born in that country. Werner von Braun was the only reason why America had a chance at all at succeeding in the first space race. So if it wasn't for someone who literally immigrated there and hadn't spent a single generation there, then you would have not had NASA, you would have none of these things. You would have.
But what do Werner von Braun and Elon have in common?
That they both came here.
What else?
I don't know. That's about it.
They're white.
Skin color is something like that. Yeah. Well, what's the problem with the skin color? Yeah. Well, what's the problem with that? You can point at many other people that have done great things as well.
Like who?
I think I could take a recent one. We could say would be someone like Arvind Srinivas. He's a pretty cool one. This is a recent tech founder type of person. There's one that I can name right off the top of my head. I think he's a really cool individual.
Yeah. No,
he is Indian, ironically enough, but I think he embraces, American exceptionalism to a certain extent and is an accelerationist. By the way, I do think accelerationism is pretty good, but I think that would cause a bit of a rift, I think, between people here, because they believe that we should slow things down. I don't. I think that moving ahead faster is one of the only solutions.
Also, interestingly, that guy still doesn't have a green card.
Yeah, it's fucked up, isn't it? He's contributed enormous economic benefit to the country in which he's in, which is America. So I'd say if somebody does something like that, it's a browser that actually circumvents the problems that exist with Google. So Google's search engine is fucking disgusting. So he has solved that problem. Ironically, the very problem that you say has been caused by Indians is an Indian fix it.
Werner von Braun and Elon, rocket ships, guy, web browser. No, but I agree. I mean, look.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
I agree. I mean, look, like, my favorite artist is Ye. Is Kanye. He's black.
By the way, consider that, for instance, Tesla, which is one of those companies that is owned by Elon and primarily operated by Elon. If you look at one of its primary things that makes it very relevant is the fact that the Tesla car is basically a robot on wheels. And one of the things that they have, which practically no other car company has, because Tesla's not really a car company, they're an AI and robotics company. They have real-world AI in that they can actually interact with the real world in ways that no other AI company has been able to do yet. And who is the head of, who's the head of that specific part of Tesla? The AI, real-world AI thing, FSD, who's that?
Who is it?
It's an Indian guy. So
based.
All I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and I don't think
it boils down to generations. I do agree that limiting immigration in is totally warranted. I think everybody agrees here actually with this one. I I think it's like, bringing people in en masse without any consideration as to who they are. Even to a certain extent, I mean, terrorists have come into that country and they've really fucked things up. That is a problem. And look at Germany right now; it's completely falling apart because of the people that they brought in. So you can see the disaster firsthand. So I don't disagree with that whatsoever. I fully agree, however, with bringing people into various places if they are skilled and they want to make that place a better place, or they want to come to what is effectively the land of opportunity. And I think that is exactly what one should do. If you see opportunity in your country, you should go there.
That's our home, but that's our home. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah, but they can make it their home also. And they can make your home better.
But they can't. They can't, because if they change what our home is, then it's no longer our home. If I live in a neighborhood that is, 90% white, and then I return to it when I'm an old man, when I'm 60 years old, and it's 90% not white, it's going to be unrecognizable. They won't even be speaking the same language. It's going to be completely different.
Yeah, but
that's the problem. Let me finish. Like, people say, oh, America's the land of opportunity. We're going to come in and take advantage. It's like, okay, but we fucking live here. Like we if that involves fundamentally changing our home, then we don't want that. And I think that we can have, and I don't think we disagree, actually. I don't think that, like, we can have a small number of people come here who are truly exceptional and innovate. A small number. But that's not what's happening. We're talking millions. Like 10 million illegals came in under Biden.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And millions of legal people came here too.
Disagree. Yeah, but we don't disagree. On that, we don't disagree. What I was specifically saying is when you have a people that are brought in who represent the culture on every level, right? Represent the American culture on every level, then basically, even though these people would have a different appearance from the perspective of their biology, they would still be just as American as anyone else who looks a different way. It's just simply how it is. So I think, like, even say, for instance, you come to that neighborhood once again, the same values that have existed before you left are still there in place. So if these values are being reinforced within people, and the people that came there have those same values, even though they look a little bit different, the only thing that will look different is, to a certain extent, maybe even the faces. But I think that would be short-lived also, because even if you were to intermingle...
We're not just values, we're people. That's sort of the point. Is like,
people also,
it's like I said, when I
be invaded. The point is, like, with small amounts of immigration, you're not going to be invaded. What has been happening is basically full-scale invasion by people who came in illegally, right? We're not disputing that whatsoever, and I agree that's a problem. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, because I think the H-1B had been abused in the past, but of course that's getting overhauled now. At least
you also have the diversity visa.
The diversity visa is absolute bullshit. Yeah. So
I don't think we're in disagreement.
Yeah, no, we're not in disagreement. We're just narrowing down definitions. That's what.
Nick, I am curious. What do you think about the EB-5?
I think all the immigration programs got to go for now, even EB-5. There's just too many people. I don't think that, I think that I'm in favor of a total immigration moratorium. So, and that includes, so-called specialist skilled people, investors, whoever you want to say. I think that for now, and you laugh, but it's like, if we were talking about a vacuum, that maybe that would be fine. Maybe EB-5 would be okay. Maybe we'd keep some of the other ones. But we're talking about a country that has had, like I said, it's constantly increasing for 60 years. So I think we need to pause. And that's not ahistorical either. The country has had waves of immigration, and then always is followed up with a wave where we don't have immigration. They will have a lot of people come in, and then we shut the door for a period of time. Also, for most of the country's history, those people are all coming from Europe. And whether you think, race matters or values matter, maybe, or whatever your relative import you place on those things, I think anyone would agree that it's easier for a white person of a different ethnicity to assimilate than a non-white person, just because of proximity. We use the same alphabet. We have the same religion, generally speaking. We look relatively the same compared to people that, obviously there's more difference between a Nigerian and an Englishman than a German and an Englishman. So for obvious reasons, and that's how we had it when we had all Europeans coming here. Come in, close the door. Come in, close the door. For 60 years, it's just been come right on in. And next year, more people should come in. For 60 years, and they're coming from Asia and Latin America mostly. So No, I think even investors, we just need to have it all shut down so the people that are here can have a chance to assimilate to whatever extent possible, and then you can open it up to investors and specialists and other people. But for now, I think it should be almost complete.
Hey, listen, guys. I have actually an appointment I got to go to tonight. But if you want to stay on, I'm gonna drop off. Thanks for hosting the space, Adrian. I appreciate it. Nick, it was a good. I don't even know if it counts as a debate, but it was nice to meet you. Oh, he looks like he just dropped off too.
Yeah, I think this was a really good conversation. Thank you for coming, by the way. And if you'd like to do this at any other point in time again, just hit me up. We'll do it. We'll make something happen.
Yeah, let me know. I think it's fun. I like these kinds of I don't know, debate conversations. It's interesting.
Sure. Also, your community is amazing. Amazing meme that they created. It's fucking great. It's good. I love it.
Adrian, they're begging you to put it on.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, I do in effect have one that looks just like me. It's like one that's on Mars. It's very nice. Like the background is really, really cool. I made one.
Yeah, I saw it.
We'll show it off in a live stream.
Oh yeah? You're wearing it on your
Max.
Yeah, I have it in my Discord server on Signal and such. Out of here is like, why the fuck are you milady? It's so funny.
Yeah, there's a ton of conspiracies, just like that you're Elon Musk, but also that Elon's secretly a milady with an alt. So it just feels that.
That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. I mean, I do have an alt. I should probably put it on there.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Complete the. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, anyways, thanks for coming, man. This is great. Do you see Nick Fuentes connecting again, or is he dropped for a while?
I don't see him connecting. I think he just dropped, perhaps.
Yeah, my phone actually died earlier when you guys were talking. My phone died. I had to charge it and get back in.
That explains it. Yeah.
For a second.
He's coming back?
Yeah, he's connecting it.
Cool.
You back, Nick?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say I'm heading out as well, but yeah, thank you, Charlotte Fang, for joining up the space. I know I'm surrounded by drama and controversy, so I appreciate you joining the space. I thought it was a good conversation. I'm a fan of Milady. Maybe I can come to one of your events. If you're a free speech guy, I'd love to show support. If you don't want the smoke, that's okay too. But it was good meeting you, and thanks, Adrian, for putting this on, and your co-host as well. You're always super objective, and we love your spaces. You're totally solid, so I appreciate you a lot.
Thanks, man.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay, cool, Nick. Great to meet you. And yeah, we'll connect.
All right, sweet. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, I'll be dropping off too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. I think we can wrap it here. What do you guys think? Like, that's a good wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think there's not much else to discuss, really. But yeah, this is great. Thank you all for coming. If you'd like to see more of this, make sure to follow, turn notifications on. I go live every single day on Spaces, almost every single day, as a matter of fact. I might be taking a bit of a break coming up because I have a bunch of things that I do in real life. But I frequently host Spaces just like these, record the conversation. So join us there if you'd like. Also, thank you for all of the Milady community for coming out. Thank you for all of the community that came out from Fuentes as well, to joining up and listening to this and being relatively civil in the comments. I really enjoyed this. This was great. Should we do it again sometime? Thank you all for coming. See you on the timeline.
Good night.
Okay, so that's Elon Musk signing off. This was the Nick Fuentes interview debate with Fang. He also said he won't be doing conversations every night from now on. Okay, Ben, hope you enjoyed that. Okay, this is the Dhammapada Book of Wisdom by Buddha. Okay, this is Dhammapada.
The Dhammapada, The Sayings of the Buddha, translated by F. Max Muller and narrated by Robin Homer. Chapter 1. The Twin Verses. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded upon our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him, as the wheels follow the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him. He abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbour such thoughts, hatred will never cease. He abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who do not harbour such thoughts, hatred will cease. For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love. This is an old rule. The world does not know that we must all come to an end here, but those who know it, their quarrels cease at once. He who lives looking for pleasures only, his senses uncontrolled, immoderate in his food, idle and weak, Mara, the tempter, will certainly overthrow him, as the wind throws down a weak tree. He who lives without looking for pleasures, his senses well controlled, moderate in his food, faithful and strong, him Mara will certainly not overthrow, any more than the wind throws down a rocky mountain. He who wishes to put on the yellow dress without having cleansed himself from sin, who disregards temperance and truth, is unworthy of the yellow dress. But he who has cleansed himself from sin, is well grounded in all virtues, and regards also temperance and truth, he is indeed worthy of the yellow dress. They who imagine truth in untruth, and see untruth in truth, never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. They who know truth in truth, and untruth in untruth, arrive at truth, and follow true desires. As rain breaks through an ill-thatched house, passion will break through an unreflecting mind. As rain does not break through a well-thatched house, passion will not break through a well-reflecting mind. The evildoer mourns in this world, and he mourns in the next. He mourns in both. He mourns and suffers when he sees the evil of his own work. The virtuous man delights in this world, and he delights in the next. He delights in both. He delights and rejoices when he sees the purity of his own work. The evildoer suffers in this world, and he suffers in the next. He suffers in both. He suffers when he thinks of the evil he has done. He suffers more when going on the evil path. The virtuous man is happy in this world, and he is happy in the next. He is happy in both. He is happy when he thinks of the good he has done. He is still more happy when going on the good path. The thoughtless man, even if he can recite a large portion of the law, but is not the doer of it, has no share in the priesthood, but is like a cowherd counting the cows of others. The follower of the law, even if he can recite only a small portion of it, but having forsaken passion and hatred and foolishness, possesses true knowledge and serenity of mind, he, caring for nothing in this world or that to come, has indeed a share in the priesthood. Chapter 2. On Earnestness. Earnestness is the path of immortality, nirvana. thoughtlessness the path of death. Those who are in earnest do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. Those who are advanced in earnestness, having understood this clearly, delight in earnestness, and rejoice in the knowledge of the Arias, the elect. These wise people, meditative, steady, always possessed of strong powers, attain to nirvana, the highest happiness. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to law, then his glory will increase. By rousing himself, by earnestness, by restraint and control, the wise man may make for himself an island which no flood can overwhelm. Fools follow after vanity, men of evil wisdom. The wise man keeps earnestness as his best jewel. Follow not after vanity, nor after the enjoyment of love and lust. He who is earnest and meditative obtains ample joy. When the learned man drives away vanity by earnestness, he, the wise, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, looks down upon the fools. Serene he looks upon the toiling crowd, as one that stands on a mountain looks down upon them that stand upon the plain. Earnest among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepers, the wise man advances like a racer, leaving behind the hack. By earnestness did Bhagavan, Indra, rise to the lordship of the gods. People praise earnestness. Thoughtlessness is always blamed. A bhikshu, mendicant, who delights in earnestness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, moves about like fire, burning all his fetters, small or large. A bhikshu, mendicant, who delights in reflection, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away from his perfect state. He is close upon nirvana. Chapter 3. Thought. As a fletcher makes straight his arrow, a wise man makes straight his trembling and unsteady thought, which is difficult to guard, difficult to hold back. As a fish taken from his watery home and thrown on dry ground, our thought trembles all over in order to escape the dominion of Mara, the tempter. It is good to tame the mind, which is difficult to hold in and flighty, rushing wherever it listeth. A tamed mind brings happiness. Let the wise man guard his thoughts, for they are difficult to perceive, very artful, and they rush wherever they list. Thoughts well guarded bring happiness. Those who bridle their mind, which travels far, moves about alone, is without a body, and hides in the chamber of the heart, will be free from the bonds of Mara, the tempter. If a man's thoughts are unsteady, if he does not know the true law, if his peace of mind is troubled, his knowledge will never be perfect. If a man's thoughts are not dissipated, if his mind is not perplexed, if he has ceased to think of good or evil, then there is no fear for him while he is watchful. Knowing that this body is fragile like a jar, and making this thought firm like a fortress, one should attack Mara the tempter with the weapon of knowledge. One should watch him when conquered, and should never rest. Before long, alas, this body will lie on the earth, despised, without understanding, like a useless log. Whatever a hater may do to a hater, nor an enemy to an enemy, a wrongly directed mind will do us greater mischief. Not a mother, not a father will do so much, nor any other relative. A well-directed mind will do us greater service. Chapter 4. Flowers. Who shall overcome this earth, and the world of Yama, the lord of the departed, and the world of the gods? Who shall find out the plainly shown path of virtue, as a clever man finds out the right flower? The disciple will overcome the earth, and the world of Yama, and the world of the gods. The disciple will find the plainly shown path of virtue, as a clever man finds out the right flower. He who knows that this body is like froth, and has learnt that it is as unsubstantial as a mirage, will break the flower-pointed arrow of Mara, and never see the king of death. Death carries off a man who is gathering flowers and whose mind is distracted, as a flood carries off a sleeping village. Death subdues a man who is gathering flowers and whose mind is distracted before he is satiated in his pleasures. As the bee collects nectar and departs without injuring the flower or its colour or scent, so let the sage dwell in his village. Not the perversities of others, not their sins of commission or omission, but his own misdeeds and negligences should a sage take notice of. Like a beautiful flower, full of colour but without scent, are the fine but fruitless words of him who does not act accordingly. But like a beautiful flower, full of colour and full of scent, are the fine and fruitful words of him who acts accordingly. As many kinds of wreaths can be made from a heap of flowers, so many good things may be achieved by a mortal when once he is born. The scent of flowers does not travel against the wind, nor that of sandalwood or of tagara and malacca flowers, but the odour of good people travels even against the wind. A good man pervades every place. Sandalwood or tagara, a lotus flower or a vasiki, among these sorts of perfumes, the perfume of virtue is unsurpassed. Mean is the scent that comes from tagara and sandalwood. The perfume of those who possess virtue rises up to the gods as the highest. Of the people who possess these virtues, who live without thoughtlessness, and who are emancipated through true knowledge, Mara, the tempter, never finds the way. As on a heap of rubbish cast upon the highway, the lily will grow full of sweet perfume and delight. Thus, the disciple of the truly enlightened Buddha shines forth by his knowledge among those who are like rubbish, among the people that walk in darkness. Chapter 5. The Fool. Long is the night to him who is awake. Long is a mile to him who is tired. Long is life to the foolish who do not know the true law. If a traveller does not meet with one who is his better or his equal, let him firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with a fool. These sons belong to me, and this wealth belongs to me. With such thoughts, a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself, how much less sons and wealth. The fool who knows his foolishness is wise at least so far, but a fool who thinks himself wise, he is a fool indeed. If a fool be associated with a wise man, even all his life, he will perceive the truth as little as a spoon perceives the taste of soup. If an intelligent man be associated for 1 minute only with a wise man, he will soon perceive the truth, as the tongue perceives the taste of soup. Fools of little understanding have themselves for their greatest enemies, for they do evil deeds which must bear bitter fruits. That deed is not well done, of which a man must repent, and the reward of which he receives crying and with a tearful face. No, that deed is well done, of which a man does not repent, and the reward of which he receives gladly and cheerfully. As long as the evil deed does not bear fruit, the fool thinks it is like honey, but when it ripens, then the fool suffers grief. Let a fool, month after month, eat his food, like an ascetic, with the tip of a blade of kusa grass. Yet he is not worth the 16th particle of those who have well weighed the law. An evil deed, like newly drawn milk, does not turn suddenly. Smouldering, like fire covered by ashes, it follows the fool. And when the evil deed, after it has become known, brings sorrow to the fool, then it destroys his bright lot. Nay, it cleaves his head. Let the fool wish for a false reputation, for precedence among the bhikshus, for lordship in the convents, for worship among other people. May both the layman and he who has left the world think that this is done by me. May they be subject to me in everything which is to be done or is not to be done. Thus is the mind of the fool, and his desire and pride increase. One is the road that leads to wealth, another the road that leads to nirvana. If the bhikshu, the disciple of Buddha, has learnt this, he will not yearn for honour, he will strive after separation from the world. Chapter 6. The Wise Man, or Pandita. If you see an intelligent man who tells you where true treasures are to be found, who shows you what is to be avoided, and administers reproofs, follow that wise man. It will be better, not worse, for those who follow him. Let him admonish, let him teach, let him forbid what is improper. He will be beloved of the good, by the bad he will be hated. Do not have evildoers for friends. Do not have low people for friends. Have virtuous people for friends. Have for friends the best of men. He who drinks in the law lives happily with a serene mind. The sage rejoices always in the law, as preached by the elect, the Arias. Well makers lead the water wherever they like. Fletchers bend the arrow. Carpenters bend a log of wood. Wise people fashion themselves. A solid rock is not shaken by the wind. Wise people falter not amidst blame and praise. Wise people, after they have listened to the laws, become serene, like a deep, smooth, and still lake. Good people walk on whatever befall. The good do not prattle, longing for pleasure. Whether touched by happiness or sorrow, wise people never appear elated or depressed. If, whether for his own sake or for the sake of others, a man wishes neither for a son, nor for wealth, nor for lordship, and if he does not wish for his own success by unfair means, then he is good. wise and virtuous. Few are there among men who arrive at the other shore, become arhats. The other people here run up and down the shore. But those who, when the law has been well preached to them, follow the law, will pass across the dominion of death, however difficult to overcome. A wise man should leave the dark state of ordinary life and follow the bright state of the bhikshu. After going from his home to a homeless state, he should, in his retirement, look for enjoyment where there seemed to be no enjoyment. Leaving all pleasures behind and calling nothing his own, the wise man should purge himself from all the troubles of the mind. Those whose mind is well grounded in the 7 elements of knowledge, who, without clinging to anything, rejoice in freedom from attachment, whose appetites have been conquered, and who are full of light, are free even in this world. Chapter 7. The Venerable, or Arhat. There is no suffering for him who has finished his journey and abandoned grief, who has freed himself on all sides and thrown off all fetters. They depart with their thoughts well collected. They are not happy in their abode, like swans who have left their lake. They leave their house and home. Men who have no riches, who live on recognized food, who have perceived void and the unconditioned freedom of nirvana, their path is difficult to understand, like that of birds in the air. He whose appetites are stilled, who is not absorbed in enjoyment, who has perceived void and the unconditioned freedom of nirvana, his path is difficult to understand, like that of birds in the air. The gods even envy him whose senses, like horses well broken in by the driver, have been subdued, who is free from pride and free from appetites. Such a one who does his duty is tolerant like the earth, like Indra's bolt. He is like a lake without mud. No new births are in store for him. His thought is quiet. Quiet are his word and deed, when he has obtained freedom by true knowledge, when he has thus become a quiet man. The man who is free from credulity, but knows the uncreated, who has cut all ties, removed all temptations, renounced all desires, he is the greatest of men. In a hamlet or in a forest, or in the deep water or on the dry land, wherever venerable persons, Arhanta, dwell, that place is delightful. Forests are delightful. Where the world finds no delight, there the passionless will find delight, for they look not for pleasures. Chapter 8. The Thousands. Even though a speech be 1,000 words, but made up of senseless words, one word of sense is better, which if a man hears, he becomes quiet. Even though a gatha poem be 1,000 words, but made up of senseless words, one word of a gatha is better, which if a man hears, he becomes quiet. Though a man recite 100 gathas made up of senseless words, one word of the law is better, which if a man hears, he becomes quiet. If one man conquer in battle 1,000 times thousands men, and if another conquer himself, he is the greatest of conquerors. One's own self conquered is better than all other people. Not even a god, a Gandharva, not Mara with Brahman could change into defeat the victory of a man who has vanquished himself and always lives under restraint. If a man for 100 years sacrifice month after month with 1,000, and if he but for one moment pay homage to a man whose soul is grounded in true knowledge, better is that homage than sacrifice for 100 years. If a man for 100 years worship Agni, fire, in the forest, and if he but for one moment pay homage to a man whose soul is grounded in true knowledge, better is that homage than sacrifice for 100 years. Whatever a man sacrifice in this world as an offering or as an oblation for a whole year in order to gain merit, the whole of it is not worth a farthing. Reverence shown to the righteous is better. He who always greets and constantly reveres the aged, 4 things will increase to him: life, beauty, happiness, power. But he who lives 100 years, vicious and unrestrained, a life of one day is better if a man is virtuous and reflecting. And he who lives 100 years, ignorant and unrestrained, a life of one day is better if a man is wise and reflecting. And he who lives 100 years, idle and weak, a life of one day is better if a man has attained firm strength. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing beginning and end, a life of one day is better if a man sees beginning and end. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing the immortal place, a life of one day is better if a man sees the immortal place. And he who lives 100 years, not seeing the highest law, a life of one day It is better if a man sees the highest law. Chapter 9. Evil. If a man would hasten towards the good, he should keep his thought away from evil. If a man does what is good slothfully, his mind delights in evil. If a man commits a sin, let him not do it again. Let him not delight in sin. Pain is the outcome of evil. If a man does what is good, let him do it again. Let him delight in it. Happiness is the outcome of good. Even an evildoer sees happiness as long as his evil deed has not ripened. But when his evil deed has ripened, then does the evildoer see evil. Even a good man sees evil days as long as his good deed has not ripened. But when his good deed has ripened, then does the good man see happy days. Let no man think lightly of evil, saying in his heart, "It will not come nigh unto me." Even by the falling of water drops, a water pot is filled. The fool becomes full of evil, even if he gather it little by little. Let no man think lightly of good, saying in his heart, "It will not come nigh unto me." Even by the falling of water drops, a water pot is filled. The wise man becomes full of good, even if he gather it little by little. Let a man avoid evil deeds as a merchant, if he has few companions and carries much wealth, avoids a dangerous road, as a man who loves life avoids poison. He who has no wound on his hand may touch poison with his hand. Poison does not affect one who has no wound, nor is there evil for one who does not commit evil. If a man offend a harmless, pure and innocent person, the evil falls back upon that fool, like light dust thrown up against the wind. Some people are born again. Evildoers go to hell, righteous people go to heaven. Those who are free from all worldly desires attain nirvana. Not in the sky, not in the midst of the sea, not if we enter the clefts of the mountains, is there known a spot in the whole world where a man might be freed from an evil deed. Not in the sky, not in the midst of the sea, not if we enter the clefts of the mountains, is there known a spot in the whole world where death could not overcome the mortal. Chapter 10. Punishment. All men tremble at punishment. All men fear death. Remember that you are like unto them, and do not kill, nor cause slaughter. All men tremble at punishment. All men love life. Remember that you are like unto them, and do not kill, nor cause slaughter. He who, seeking his own happiness, punishes or kills beings who also long for happiness, will not find happiness after death. He who, seeking his own happiness, does not punish or kill beings who also long for happiness, will find happiness after death. Do not speak harshly to anybody. Those who are spoken to will answer thee in the same way. Angry speech is painful. Blows for blows will touch thee. If, like a shattered metal gong, you utter not, then you have reached nirvana. Contention is not known to you. As a cowherd with his staff drives his cows into the stable, so do age and death drive the life of men. A fool does not know when he commits his evil deeds, but the wicked man burns by his own deeds, as if burnt by fire. He who inflicts pain on innocent and harmless persons will soon come to one of these 10 states. He will have cruel suffering, loss, injury of the body, heavy affliction or loss of mind, or a misfortune coming from the king, or a fearful accusation, or loss of relations, or destruction of treasures, or lightning fire will burn his houses, and when his body is destroyed, the fool will go to hell. Not nakedness, not plaited hair, not dirt, not fasting or lying on the earth, not rubbing with dust, not sitting motionless, can purify a mortal who has not overcome desires. He who, though dressed in fine apparel, exercises tranquility, is quiet, subdued, restrained, chaste, and has ceased to find fault with all other beings, he indeed is a Brahmana, an ascetic, Sramana, a friar, bhikshu. Is there in this world any man so restrained by humility that he does not mind reproof, as a well-trained horse the whip? Like a well-trained horse when touched by the whip, be you active and lively, and by faith, by virtue, by energy, by meditation, by discernment of the law, you will overcome this great pain of reproof, perfect in knowledge and in behaviour, and never forgetful. Well-makers lead the water wherever they like. Fletchers bend the arrow, carpenters bend a log of wood. Good people fashion themselves. Chapter 11. Old Age. How is their laughter? How is their joy? Or is this world always burning? Why do you not seek a light, you who are surrounded by darkness? Look at this dressed-up lump, covered with wounds, joined together, sickly, full of many thoughts, which has no strength, no hold. This body is wasted, full of sickness and frail. This heap of corruption breaks into pieces. Life indeed ends in death. Those white bones, those gourds thrown away in autumn, what pleasure is there in looking at them? After a stronghold has been made of the bones, it is covered with flesh and blood, and there dwell in it old age and death, pride and deceit. The brilliant chariots of kings are destroyed. The body also approaches destruction, but the virtue of good people never approaches destruction. Thus do the good say to the good. Looking for the maker of this tabernacle, I shall have to run through a course of many births, so long as I do not find him, and painful is birth again and again. But now, maker of the tabernacle, you have been seen. You shall not make this tabernacle again. All thy rafters are broken. Thy ridgepole is sundered. The mind, approaching the eternal, Visankara, Nirvana, has attained to the extinction of all desires. Men who have not observed proper discipline and have not gained treasure in their youth perish like old herons in a lake without fish. Men who have not observed proper discipline and have not gained treasure in their youth lie like broken bows, sighing after the past. Chapter 12. Self. If a man hold himself dear, let him watch himself carefully. During one at least out of the 3 watches, a wise man should be watchful. Let each man direct himself first to what is proper, then let him teach others. Thus a wise man will not suffer. If a man make himself as he teaches others to be, then, being himself well subdued, he may subdue others. One's own self is indeed difficult to subdue. Self is the lord of self. Who else could be the lord? With self well subdued, a man finds a lord such as few can find. The evil done by oneself, self-begotten, self-bred, crushes the foolish, as a diamond breaks a precious stone. He whose wickedness is very great brings himself down to the state where his enemy wishes him to be, as a creeper does with the tree which it surrounds. Bad deeds and deeds hurtful to ourselves are easy to do. What is beneficial and good, that is very difficult to do. The foolish man who scorns the rule of the venerable, Arahat, of the elect, Arya, of the virtuous, and follows false doctrines, he bears fruits to his own destruction, like the fruits of the Kataka reed. By oneself the evil is done. By oneself one suffers. By oneself evil is left undone. By oneself one is purified. Purity and impurity belong to oneself. No one can purify another. Let no one forget his own duty for the sake of another's, however great. Let a man, after he has discerned his own duty, be always attentive to his duty. Chapter 13. The World. Do not follow the evil law. Do not live on in thoughtlessness. Do not follow false doctrine. Be not a friend of the world. Rouse thyself. Do not be idle. Follow the law of virtue. The virtuous rests in bliss in this world and in the next. Follow the law of virtue. Do not follow that of sin. The virtuous rests in bliss in this world and in the next. Look upon the world as a bubble. Look upon it as a mirage. The king of death does not see him who thus looks down upon the world. Come, look at this glittering world, like unto a royal chariot. The foolish are immersed in it, but the wise do not touch it. He who formerly was reckless and afterwards became sober brightens up this world, like the moon when freed from clouds. He whose evil deeds are covered by good deeds brightens up this world, like the moon when freed from the clouds. This world is dark. Few only can see here. A few only go to heaven, like birds escaped from the net. The swans go on the path of the sun. They go through the ether by means of their miraculous power. The wise are led out of this world when they have conquered Mara and his train. If a man has transgressed one law and speaks lies and scoffs at another world, there is no evil he will not do. The uncharitable do not go to the world of the gods. Fools only do not praise liberality. A wise man rejoices in liberality, and through it becomes blessed in the other world. Better than sovereignty over the earth, better than going to heaven, better than lordship over all worlds, is the reward of the first step in holiness. Chapter 14. The Buddha, the Awakened. He whose conquest is not conquered again, into whose conquest no one in this world enters, by what track can you lead him, the awakened, the omniscient, the trackless? He whom no desire with its snares and poisons can lead astray, By what track can you lead him, the awakened, the omniscient, the trackless? Even the gods envy those who are awakened and not forgetful, who are given to meditation, who are wise and who delight in the repose of retirement from the world. Difficult to obtain is the conception of men, difficult is the life of mortals, difficult is the hearing of the true law, difficult is the birth of the awakened, the attainment of Buddhahood. Not to commit any sin, to do good and to purify one's mind, that is the teaching of all the awakened. The awakened call patience the highest penance, long-suffering the highest nirvana, for he is not an anchorite, pravragita, who strikes others. He is not an ascetic, sramana, who insults others. Not to blame, not to strike, to live restrained under the law, to be moderate in eating, to sleep and sit alone, and to dwell on the highest thoughts. This is the teaching of the awakened. There is no satisfying lusts, even by a shower of gold pieces. He who knows that lusts have a short taste and cause pain, he is wise. Even in heavenly pleasures he finds no satisfaction. The disciple who is fully awakened delights only in the destruction of all desires. Men, driven by fear, go to many a refuge, to mountains and forests, to groves and sacred trees. But that is not a safe refuge. That is not the best refuge. A man is not delivered from all pains after having gone to that refuge. He who takes refuge with Buddha, the law, and the church, he who, with clear understanding, sees the four holy truths, pain, the origin of pain, the destruction of pain, and the eightfold holy way that leads to the quieting of pain. That is the safe refuge. That is the best refuge. Having gone to that refuge, a man is delivered from all pain. A supernatural person, a Buddha, is not easily found. He is not born everywhere. Wherever such a sage is born, that race prospers. Happy is the arising of the awakened. Happy is the teaching of the true law. Happy is peace in the church. Happy is the devotion of those who are at peace. He who pays homage to those who deserve homage, whether the awakened Buddha or their disciples, those who have overcome the host of evils and crossed the flood of sorrow, he who pays homage to such as have found deliverance and know no fear, his merit can never be measured by anybody. Chapter 15. Happiness. Let us live happily then, not hating those who hate us. Among men who hate us, let us dwell free from hatred. Let us live happily then, free from ailments, among the ailing. Among men who are ailing, let us dwell free from ailments. Let us live happily then, free from greed, among the greedy. Among men who are greedy, let us dwell free from greed. Let us live happily then, though we call nothing our own. We shall be like the bright gods, feeding on happiness. Victory breeds hatred, for the conquered is unhappy. He who has given up both victory and defeat, he, the contented, is happy. There is no fire like passion. There is no losing throw like hatred. There is no pain like this body. There is no happiness higher than rest. Hunger is the worst of diseases, the body the greatest of pains. If one knows this truly, that is nirvana, the highest happiness. Health is the greatest of gifts, contentedness the best riches, trust is the best of relationships, nirvana the highest happiness. He who has tasted the sweetness of solitude and tranquility is free from fear and free from sin, while he tastes the sweetness of drinking in the law. The sight of the elect, Ariya, is good. To live with them is always happiness. If a man does not see fools, he will be truly happy. He who walks in the company of fools suffers a long way. Company with fools, as with an enemy, is always painful. Company with the wise is pleasure, like meeting with kinsfolk. Therefore, one ought to follow the wise, the intelligent, the learned, the much enduring, the dutiful, the elect. One ought to follow a good and wise man, as the moon follows the path of the stars. Chapter 16. Pleasure. He who gives himself to vanity and does not give himself to meditation, forgetting the real aim of life and grasping at pleasure, will in time envy him who has exerted himself in meditation. Let no man ever look for what is pleasant or what is unpleasant. Not to see what is pleasant is pain, and it is pain to see what is unpleasant. Let, therefore, no man love anything. Loss of the beloved is evil. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. From pleasure comes grief, from pleasure comes fear. He who is free from pleasure knows neither grief nor fear. From affection comes grief, from affection comes fear. He who is free from affection knows neither grief nor fear. From lust comes grief, from lust comes fear. He who is free from lust knows neither grief nor fear. From love comes grief, from love comes fear. He who is free from love knows neither grief nor fear. From greed comes grief, from greed comes fear. He who is free from greed knows neither grief nor fear. He who possesses virtue and intelligence, who is just, who speaks the truth, and does what is his own business, him the world will hold dear. He in whom a desire for the ineffable, nirvana, has sprung up, who is satisfied in his mind, and whose thoughts are not bewildered by love, he is called Udvramstrotas, carried upwards by the stream. Kinsmen, friends, and lovers salute a man who has been long away, and returns safe from afar. In like manner his good works receive him who has done good, and has gone from this world to the other, as kinsmen receive a friend on his return. Chapter 17. Anger. Let a man leave anger. Let him forsake pride. Let him overcome all bondage. No sufferings befall the man who is not attached to name and form, and who calls nothing his own. He who holds back rising anger like a rolling chariot, him I call a real driver. Other people are but holding the reins. Let a man overcome anger by love. Let him overcome evil by good. Let him overcome the greedy by liberality, the liar by truth. Speak the truth. Do not yield to anger. Give if thou art asked for little. By these 3 steps thou wilt go near the gods. The sages who injure nobody and who always control their body, they will go to the unchangeable place, nirvana, where, if they have gone, they will suffer no more. Those who are ever watchful, who study day and night, and who strive after nirvana, their passions will come to an end. This is an old saying, O Attila. This is not only of today. They blame him who sits silent, they blame him who speaks much, they also blame him who says little. There is no one on earth who is not blamed. There never was, there never will be, nor is there now, a man who is always blamed, or a man who is always praised. But he whom those who discriminate praise continually day after day, as without blemish, wise, rich in knowledge and virtue, who would dare to blame him, like a coin made of gold from the Gambu river? Even the gods praise him. He is praised even by Brahman. Beware bodily anger, and control thy body. Leave the sins of the body, and with thy body practice virtue. Beware of the anger of the tongue, and control thy tongue. Leave the sins of the tongue, and practice virtue with thy tongue. Beware of the anger of the mind, and control thy mind. Leave the sins of the mind, and practice virtue with thy mind. The wise who control their body, who control their tongue, who control their mind, are indeed well controlled. Chapter 18. Impurity. Thou art now like a sear leaf. The messengers of death, Yama, have come near to thee. Thou standest at the door of thy departure, and thou hast no provision for thy journey. Make thyself an island, work hard, be wise. When thy impurities are blown away, and thou art free from guilt, thou wilt enter into the heavenly world of the elect, Ariya. Thy life has come to an end, thou art near to death. There is no resting place for thee on the road, and thou hast no provision for thy journey. Make thyself an island, work hard, be wise. When thy impurities are blown away, and thou art free from guilt, thou wilt not enter again into birth and decay. Let a wise man blow off the impurities of self, as a smith blows off the impurities of silver one by one, little by little, and from time to time. As the impurity which springs from the iron, when it springs from it, destroys it, thus do a transgressor's own works lead him to the evil path. The taint of prayers is non-repetition. The taint of houses, non-repair. The taint of the body is sloth. The taint of a watchman, thoughtlessness. Bad conduct is the taint of woman. Greediness, the taint of a benefactor. Tainted are all evil ways in this world and in the next, but there is a taint worse than all taints. Ignorance is the greatest taint. O mendicants, throw off that taint and become taintless. Life is easy to live for a man who is without shame, a crow hero, a mischief maker, an insulting, bold, and wretched fellow. But life is hard to live for a modest man who always looks for what is pure, who is disinterested, quiet, spotless, and intelligent. He who destroys life, who speaks untruth, who in this world takes what is not given him, who goes to another man's wife, and the man who gives himself to drinking intoxicating liquors, he, even in this world, digs up his own root. O man, know this, that the unrestrained are in a bad state. Take care that greediness and vice do not bring thee to grief for a long time. The world gives according to their faith or according to their pleasure. If a man frets about the food and the drink given to others, he will find no rest either by day or by night. He in whom that feeling is destroyed and taken out with the very root finds rest by day and by night. There is no fire like passion. There is no shark like hatred. There is no snare like folly. There is no torrent like greed. The fault of others is easily perceived, but that of oneself is difficult to perceive. A man winnows his neighbour's faults like chaff, but his own fault he hides, as a cheat hides the bad die from the gambler. If a man looks after the faults of others and is always inclined to be offended, his own passions will grow, and he is far from the destruction of passions. There is no path through the air. A man is not a samana by outward acts. The world delights in vanity. The Tathagatas, the Buddhas, are free from vanity. There is no path through the air. A man is not a samana by outward acts. No creatures are eternal, but the awakened Buddha are never shaken. Chapter 19. The Just. A man is not just if he carries a matter by violence. No, he who distinguishes both right and wrong, who is learned and leads others not by violence but by law and equity, and who is guarded by the law and intelligent, he is called just. A man is not learned because he talks much. He who is patient, free from hatred and fear, he is learned. A man is not a supporter of the law because he talks much. Even if a man has learnt little but sees the law bodily, he is a supporter of the law, a man who never neglects the law. A man is not an elder because his head is grey. His age may be ripe, but he is called old in vain. He in whom there is truth, virtue, love, restraint, moderation, he who is free from impurity and is wise, he is called an elder. An envious, greedy, dishonest man does not become respectable by means of much talking only, or by the beauty of his complexion. He in whom all this is destroyed and taken out with the very root, he, when freed from hatred and wise, is called respectable. Not by tonsure does a disciplined man who speaks falsehood become a samana. Can a man be a samana who is still held captive by desire and greediness? He who always quiets the evil, whether small or large, he is called a samana, a quiet man, because he has quieted all evil. A man is not a mendicant, bhikshu, simply because he asks others for alms. He who adopts the whole law is a bhikshu, not he who only begs. He who is above good and evil, who is chaste, who with knowledge passes through the world, he indeed is called a bhikshu. A man is not a muni because he observes silence if he is foolish and ignorant, but the wise who, taking the balance, chooses the good and avoids the evil, he is a muni, and is a muni thereby. He who in this world weighs both sides is called a muni. A man is not an elect, Arya, because he injures living creatures. Because he has pity on all living creatures, thereby is a man called Arya. Not only by discipline and vows, not only by much learning, not by entering into a trance, not by sleeping alone, do I earn the happiness of release which no worldling can know. Bhikshu, be not confident, as long as thou hast not attained the extinction of desires. Chapter 20. The Way. The best of ways is the eightfold. The best of truths is the 4 words. The best of virtues, passionlessness. The best of men, he who has eyes to see. This is the way. There is no other that leads to the purifying of intelligence. Go on this way. Everything else is the deceit of Mara, the tempter. If you go on this way, you will make an end of pain. The way was preached by me when I had understood the removal of the thorns in the flesh. You yourself must make an effort. The Tathagatas, Buddhas, are only preachers. The thoughtful who enter the way are freed from the bondage of Mara. All created things perish. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain. This is the way to purity. All created things are grief and pain. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain. This is the way that leads to purity. All forms are unreal. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain. This is the way that leads to purity. He who does not rouse himself when it is time to rise, who, though young and strong, is full of sloth, whose will and thought are weak, that lazy and idle man will never find the way to knowledge. Watching his speech, well restrained in mind, let a man never commit any wrong with his body. Let a man but keep these 3 roads of action clear, and he will achieve the way which is taught by the wise. Through zeal, knowledge is gotten. Through lack of zeal, knowledge is lost. Let a man who knows this double path of gain and loss thus place himself, that knowledge may grow. Cut down the whole forest of lust, not a tree only. Danger comes out of the forest of lust. When you have cut down both the forest and its undergrowth, then, bhikshus, you will be rid of the forest and free. So long as the love of man towards women, even the smallest, is not destroyed, so long is his mind in bondage, as the calf that drinks milk is to its mother. Cut out the love of self like an autumn lotus with thy hand. Cherish the road of peace. Nirvana has been shown by Sugata, Buddha. Here I shall dwell in the rain, here in winter and summer. Thus the fool meditates and does not think of his death. Death comes and carries off that man, prays for his children and flocks, his mind distracted, as a flood carries off a sleeping village. Sons are no help, nor a father nor relations. There is no help from kinsfolk for one whom death has seized. A wise and good man that knows the meaning of this should quickly clear the way that leads to nirvana. Through zeal, knowledge is gotten. Through lack of zeal, knowledge is lost. Let a man who knows this double path of gain and loss thus place himself, that knowledge may grow. Cut down the whole forest of lust, not only a tree. Danger comes out of the forest of lust. When you have cut down both the forest and its undergrowth, then, bhikshus, you will be rid of the forest and free. So long as the love of man towards women, even the smallest, is not destroyed, so long is his mind in bondage, as the calf that drinks milk is to its mother. Cut out the love of self, like an autumn lotus, with thy hand. Cherish the road of peace. Nirvana has been shown by Sugata, Buddha. Chapter 21. Miscellaneous. If by leaving a small pleasure one sees a great pleasure, let a wise man leave the small pleasure and look to the great. He who, by causing pain to others, wishes to obtain pleasure for himself, he, entangled in the bonds of hatred, will never be free from hatred. What ought to be done is neglected. What ought not to be done is done. The desires of unruly, thoughtless people are always increasing. But they whose whole watchfulness is always directed to their body, who do not follow what ought not to be done, and who steadfastly do what ought to be done, the desires of such watchful and wise people will come to an end. A true Brahmana goes scatheless, though he have killed father and mother and 2 valiant kings, though he has destroyed a kingdom with all its subjects. A true Brahmana goes scatheless, though he have killed father and mother and 2 holy kings and an eminent man besides. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are always set on Buddha. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are always set on the law. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are always set on the church. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are always set on their body. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their mind day and night always delights in compassion. The disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their mind day and night always delights in meditation. It is hard to leave the world, to become a friar. It is hard to enjoy the world. Hard is the monastery, painful are the houses. Painful it is to dwell with equals, to share everything in common, and the itinerant mendicant is beset with pain. Therefore let no man be an itinerant mendicant, and he will not be beset with pain. Whatever place a faithful, virtuous, celebrated, and wealthy man chooses, there he is respected. Good people shine from afar, like the snowy mountains. Bad people are not seen, like arrows shot at night. He alone who, without ceasing, practices the duty of sitting alone and sleeping alone, he, subduing himself, will rejoice in the destruction of all desires alone, as if living in a forest. Chapter 22. The Downward Course. He who says what is not goes to hell. He also who, having done a thing, says, I have not done it, after death both are equal. They are men with evil deeds in the next world. Many men whose shoulders are covered with the yellow gown are ill-conditioned and unrestrained. Such evildoers by their evil deeds go to hell. Better it would be to swallow a heated iron bowl, like flaring fire, than that a bad, unrestrained fellow should live on the charity of the land. 4 things does a reckless man gain who covets his neighbour's wife: a bad reputation, an uncomfortable bed, thirdly punishment, and lastly hell. There is the bad reputation and the evil way to hell. There is the short pleasure of the frightened in the arms of the frightened, and the king imposes heavy punishment. Therefore let no man think of his neighbour's wife. As a grass blade, if badly grasped, cuts the arm, badly practised asceticism leads to hell. An act carelessly performed, a broken vow, and hesitating obedience to discipline, all this brings no great reward. If anything is to be done, let a man do it. Let him attack it vigorously. A careless pilgrim only scatters the dust of his passions more widely. An evil deed is better left undone, for a man repents of it afterwards. A good deed is better done, for having done it, one does not repent. Like a well-guarded frontier fort, with defences within and without, so let a man guard himself. Not a moment should escape, for they who allow the right moment to pass suffer pain when they are in hell. They who are ashamed of what they ought not to be ashamed of, and are not ashamed of what they ought to be ashamed of, such men, embracing false doctrines, enter the evil path. They who fear when they ought not to fear, and fear not when they ought to fear, such men, embracing false doctrines, enter the evil path. They who forbid when there is nothing to be forbidden, and forbid not when there is something to be forbidden,